Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Light, and this is another in my series of true unsolved murder cases. However, this unsolved case is a bit different in that it has several strange and what can only be described as bizarre twists in it. It's almost unbelievable. Yet, there seems to be proof that what his wife suspects happens to him actually is the real reason he died. Charles owned an escrow company in Tucson, Arizona, and by every account, lived a seemingly normal life with his wife and 2 daughters. Then, suddenly, on March 22nd of 1977, he disappeared for 3 days. And just as mysteriously as he had disappeared, he returned home, and when he did, he claimed that he was unable to speak. This is a quote from his wife, Ruth. "I was in bed and the dog started barking. I got up, went to the door and opened it, and there was Chuck. He was missing a shoe and had one plastic handcuff around one ankle and a set around his hands. When he motioned to his throat, he didn't say a word. I asked him, 'Can you talk? Can you write?' He shook his head yes, so I went and got a tablet and a pen. He wrote that his throat had been painted with a hallucinogenic drug and that the drug could drive him insane or destroy his nervous system and kill him. I wanted to call a doctor and the police, but he was adamant that that would be signing a death warrant for our entire family." After about a week, his voice returned, but Charles refused to talk about the incident, although he would seem to drop clues, implying that he was an undercover agent for the federal government, the Treasury Department to be more specific. Another quote from Ruth stated, "He wrote, 'They took my Treasury identification.' That was the first I'd heard of it. Then he told me he'd been working for them for about 2 or 3 years, and that was it." After Charles had supposedly been kidnapped, he began to wear a bulletproof vest, and he was the only person that he'd allow to drive his daughters to and from school. Then, just as suddenly as the first time, Charles disappeared 2 months later. Unfortunately, this time, he was found dead with a bullet wound to the back of his head, laying outside of his car in an Arizona desert. 9 days after Charles had disappeared, his wife, Ruth, received a mysterious phone call from a woman identifying herself as Green Eyes, who only said, "Ruthie, Chuck is all right. Ecclesiastes 12:1-8. Then she hung up. Weirder yet, when Charles was found, in addition to finding him wearing his bulletproof vest, and that he had died from a single bullet fired at close range to the back of his head, and the bullet came from his own .357 Magnum, which was lying beside him, the investigators found a piece of paper with directions to the murder site written in Chuck's handwriting, and a pair of sunglasses which definitely did not belong to him. And one of his own teeth was found in his pocket. They also found, clipped inside of his underwear, a $2 bill on which several Hispanic names were written, and the Bible verse, Ecclesiastes 12:1-8. Despite all this weird evidence, the sheriff's department somehow managed to rule his death a suicide, stating that he had managed to shoot himself in the back of his head. However, 2 days after Charles's death, a woman called the Pima County Sheriff's Department. She said that Charles had come to meet her at a local motel just before he died. The woman called herself Green Eyes and said that she was the same person who had called Charles's wife, quoting the Bible passage. Green Eyes said that in the motel, Charles had showed her a briefcase containing $60,000 in cash, which Charles said he was going to use to pay off the hitman who had been hired by the mob to kill him. This Green Eyes knew details about Charles that only someone who really did know him would know. After Charles's death, 2 men went into his home and told his wife that they were with the FBI. and they tore her home apart. She was not told what they were looking for, and she never did find out. There is a theory involved with this case, though, that back in the 70s, Arizona had a law in which a person could buy up multiple properties under a blind trust so there would not be any names attached to it. There were well-known drug routes through Arizona that were run by the mafia. It is thought that perhaps Charles had laundered money through his escrow business and got caught up in something that he could not get out of. He had mentioned to Ruth at some point that he knew of laundering going on, but he hadn't indicated that he was involved. Or maybe he was working undercover for the federal government and a mafia mob found out. We will probably never know what exactly happened to Charles, but one thing I am certain of is that this is one of the strangest unsolved murder cases that I've ever published on my channel. Thank you for coming. If you like this story, please give it a thumbs up. If you like these types of stories, please leave a comment below and tell me so. Also, if you'd like to hear more, click that subscribe button. I'll be doing another Amazon gift card giveaway soon, and you'll get a chance to be involved in that. Thank you. Good night.